Hey, chapter 1, how I got started, my first mistake. This is really important and you need to pay attention to it. My first real estate deal was $78,000 single family home. Red alert. I put $5,000 down. I got a loan saying I would live in the house. Red alert. Don't do that. By the time I closed the deal, I had changed my mind about living there and rented the property to this nice girl and her sister. I think their name was Janet or Janice. I thought I was so smart, dude. For 6 months, I made $140 a month positive cash flow. It was looking like the investment was going to be a great one. I did the math. $140 a month, 12 months, $1,680 for the first year. Red flag, representing a 33.6% on my $5,000 I invested. Oh God, I thought if I didn't incur any additional expenses, and if I didn't even think about this, the tenant stayed there, I was going to make 33% on my money. I'm so smart. I was so excited. I was experiencing the illusions of the next real estate mogul. And before I hit mogul status, I had a little bump. 4 months into the deal, reality set in when the sisters started calling every 3 days or so with some sort of complaint. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can handle the toilet. And then the next day, termites. Yeah, I'll get back with you on the termites. I don't even know who to call about the termites, okay? Then 3 days later, it was the roaches. Oh, my God, man, I got to hire a roach guy. You got to get a contract for the roach guy. You got to get a contract for the termite guy. By the way, all these people are different. And the plumber, he going to hose you. A week later, the neighbor called saying, hey, Grant, what's going on? Nobody's mowing the lawn, okay? The lawn has not been mowed in 2 weeks. I'm in Houston, Texas, okay? Houston, Texas in August. Dude, we're talking, what's that grass down there? It's called Augustine grass. It's like that tall. I started receiving phone calls this time about electrical issues. So in 1 week, this is what I get hit with. Roaches, termites, plumber, and landscaping. All of them need contracts. Never even planned on it. And then I received more phone calls about the electrical. Now I got to get an electrical guy. That's 5 different groups of people I got to talk to. Oh, by the way, if you should get 2 bids from everybody, that's 10. Then the sewer backed up on me. That's the city. Shit's getting good. Okay. Everything everybody had ever told me about real estate was coming true over like a 10-day period of time. Then the garbage disposal backs up. What have I done? I just put $5,000. Signed for 30 years on that house. By the way, remember I said I was going to live there. The time I was starting to spend on this one real estate deal, by the way, was taking time away from my main gig. Okay, I thought this was going to be passive income. This was passive pain in the ass that was actively causing me to lose money from my main job that actually paid for this piece of property. I was a successful salesperson at the time in retail. I'd actually just really started to get my legs in retail, started to build a customer base. And now, and by the way, in retail, as you know, you got to be there when they're there. 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, whatever it takes, you got to be there when they're interested in buying. The customer demands your full attention. They demand you have a great attitude, and they demand that you over-deliver even for you to have any shot at success. And now here I am trying to handle that. Retail customers, almost impossible if you got your full attention on them. But now I got to fix stuff, handle tenant complaints, and it was starting to wear me out. And I'm the first one to admit I'm good at solving problems and I'm good at math, but I'm terrible. I'm terrible if it comes to plumbing or hammering or like I don't even know where to put a nail. Every time something needed to be fixed, I had to call someone. And by the way, that was probably good for me. Otherwise, I'd have gone over there and done it myself, and that would have cost me a sale. Plumbers, electricians, service people, landscapers. Not to mention, I wasn't able to pay attention to the thing that was paying me, my job. Okay? And because I'm not paying attention to my job, then I'm not paying attention to the plumber, so those guys are probably overcharging me, no telling how much they freaking, took advantage of me on. I didn't have the time to get 3 bids. I didn't have time to shop around. I don't have time to check the reviews. I don't have time to check it out myself. I was a one-person guy trying to handle my main job and then this new real estate career. The dreaded 3 T's hit me in the face in 1 week. Tenants, termites, toilets. On top of that was the landscaping and the electrical and the garbage disposal. And that was only the beginning of the issues. If it would have stopped there, then man, I'd have been fine. Then I was hit with the reality that nobody ever tells you about. It's called one door in your face. One door renting. One of the sisters called me not long after the garbage disposal to tell me what I feared was really happening. Hey, Grant, we're moving. I knew they were. I mean, look, once somebody's so unhappy, you know they're going to blow out of the place. I was devastated. I was pissed off. I was furious about it. I was terrified. How dare they move out, I thought at first. I'd done so much for them. You know, yeah, everything I'd done for them you would expect where you rent. I was angry. I was disappointed. I was discouraged. But more than anything, okay, I was terrified. I was scared. It was November now, and I knew I was going to have to make payments to the bank without any income. Now, I'm going in hopeful, thinking, okay, I'm going to be out of income for 1 month. I got to make the whole $600 payment. I don't get the positive cash flow this month. The positive cash flow I got for 3 or 4 months was wiped out in 1 month. I thought, okay, November, I'll have a new tenant. No, I didn't have a new tenant in December, okay? Maybe I can do this in 1 month, but I knew there was probably no way at the end of that first month that I would get somebody in before the next payment was due. Now I started to worry about how long is it going to take to get that next tenant. Okay, November, December. You know what December looks like in Houston? Over the next 2 months, I wiped out my positive cash flow. And now, warning, pay attention to the story because you don't want to repeat it. Into November, going into Christmas season, Santa Claus is about to kick my tenant's ass. 'Tis the season to be merry, not the season to find a tenant. People looking for Christmas gifts, man. They're not looking for a place to live. Not in Houston, Texas. What is it? The 713, I think it is. Look, I didn't have an advertising campaign. The property was hidden in a little neighborhood called Bel Air on a street called Sheffield. I still remember the address, 1113 Sheffield. There's no drive-by. It goes north and south, and all the traffic's running right past it. I had a full-time job. I'm in a car business in December in Houston, okay? And now I got an empty house, no tenants, and a note due every month for the next. Oh, by the way, I looked it up. How many months I got left on this loan? Check this out, 352 months. Add to that, single guy, playing the field, wanting to get his groove on. I got a trip planned to go down to Cabo for a short vacation of warm sun and some big bill fishing. I had to cancel that because I need to get this place rented. On top of all that, I quickly realized I didn't know anything about the responsibility of being a landlord. You know, my mom had told me when I started this, you don't want this. People are going to be calling you at all times of night. And I did not want this, I got to tell you. I hadn't planned or prepared for any of what I had in my face. I didn't know how to find tenants, didn't know how to maintain the property, didn't know how to manage the property. I didn't know how to place an ad for 2-bedroom house, 1113 Sheffield. Even if I did know all that, who's going to go show them the house? Oh, by the way, if you hire a real estate agent, they're going to want 1 or 2 months of the 12-month contract. I hadn't fully understood the risk associated with renting one door, warning, one door, warning, the one door warning. One door warning. See, the problem was not the garbage disposal, the electrical, and the landscaping. The problem was I had one door. I didn't even know what my biggest problem was. I thought it was tenants and termites and toilets and electrical. Dude, the big problem was one door. See, I thought because I was buying one unit, I had reduced my risk. But in truth, I had increased my risk to an impossible situation because I was dependent upon one tenant. This is why I tell everybody that's doing the flip. You guys are doing flippers, all you flippers out there, all you guys that are listening to bigger podcasts. You've heard my podcast, my interviews there. You have to get to a certain number of units in order for this to ever have any potential in creating financial freedom. If it has one door, live behind it. Don't invest in it. Okay? Tweet me at Grant Cardone or hit me on the gram. Remember, if it has one door, listen to what I'm telling you. Warning, warning, submarine, under serious attack. Nuclear attack going on right now. ISIS in the neighborhood. Remember, if it has one door, live in it. Don't invest in it. So, I got a situation I got to solve now. Okay, I can't do a meme right now. Meme won't get me out of this. An Instagram quote won't get me out. What did I do? I immediately took the house, put it on the market, and did everything possible to sell it. By March, it took 5 months, it was sold. I licked my wounds and did the math. After fees to sell the property, by the way, I'm lucky I even sold it. I barely broke even. Oh, if I could have just held on for 30 years, by the way, the house is worth about $400,000 today. If I could have just held on for 30 years. After fees to sell, I barely broke even, and that's only because I managed, in my case, mismanaged the property myself. Technically, I only broke even because I refused to count any of the time or energy or effort or worry or that I spent handling the property. The real estate brokers made more on the deal. Check this out. The real estate broker made more on the deal. Still remember the guy, Patrick. He made more on this real estate transaction by selling it than I did by buying it. And if it weren't for the speed at which we sold it, the little bit of positive cash flow I did receive in the 4 months that it was rented, I would have lost that too. Look, my first deal wasn't a disaster like so many people I've heard about, but it could have been. Fortunately, I paid attention to what I did, and this experience changed my investing criteria. I went back and read all the books about the real estate tycoons I mentioned earlier. I read them all. I realized quickly how little I understood about real estate investing and that I had misunderstood what I had read, and it reinforced the warnings I had been given about headaches of being the landlord. Now, rather than writing off, this was a big move for me, rather than writing off the investment vehicle as unviable, I elected to look at my responsibility. What did I do wrong? What did I miss? I went back and studied some of the earlier names. You know, J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, the Trumps, Arnold, my buddy, the Bren, Donald Bren. I'm like, what did these guys do that I didn't do? I mentioned in the introduction about these guys. They created mega wealth with real estate. And I looked at what they had done, compared it to what I had done. Remember this thing. If it has one door, live in it. Don't invest in it. Immediately it became apparent to me what I had done wrong. They had all created financial freedom with real estate, and none of them were buying single-family homes. None of them bought single-family homes. Fred Trump is the closest one who developed single-family homes and rent and sold them, but ended up with, where their real money came from, was 28,000 rentals in Brooklyn. See, these guys that created wealth were not dependent upon one tenant. My deal had gone bad because I was dependent upon one tenant. Those moguls, real estate moguls, were not dependent upon one tenant for cash flow. They had cash flow. They could go through spells and bouts of problems. They could have 10% of their units vacant. Literally, listen to this. These guys had enough cover that they could have 10% of their units vacant and still be positive cash flow. If I lost just one tenant, I was 100% vacant. I got it right away. They had built businesses that were based on scale and renting many doors to many tenants, not dependent upon one, using the income then to cover their expenses of operations, their debt, while they waited for appreciation. Oh, got it. Now, where did I go wrong? I bought a property with a budget. That's the first thing you guys need to remember. You buy on a budget, you will get busted in the mouth. Some people say they learn more from their mistakes than their successes. I highly suggest that you don't try this in real estate, okay? I highly suggest that you do not try that formula in real estate. If you learn just from your mistakes in real estate, you're going to go bankrupt. You have to learn from the mistakes of others. Listen to my first mistake. Never make that mistake, and you will, guarantee you will be in the right direction. You will at least be going into the direction of the north, where there's prosperity and affluence and possibility. When investing money in anything, you cannot afford to learn from only your mistakes. You'll end up busted. There's an old proverb that goes something like, a fool learns from his own mistakes, and a wise man not a fool, learns from the mistakes of others. Look, most people lose money in real estate and blame the real estate. I knew it wasn't the real estate. It was the kind of real estate. The real estate wasn't the problem. It was what I bought, the type of, okay? The way I was approaching the real estate was the problem. The loan was the problem, okay? My intention to be the single family wink wink owner was the problem. The way I was approaching real estate was the problem. It wasn't real estate investing. I had gone small and I had bought based on what I could afford, budget. Okay? Look, when you go to Toys R Us, if Toys R Us is even in business by the time you get this, probably won't be actually. If you go to the grocery store with a budget, fine. If you go to the car dealership with a budget, fine. If you're going to invest in real estate, do not do it with a budget. Okay? I bought what I could afford rather than what was going to make money. I was dependent upon one tenant because that's all I thought I could afford, and it cost me. I bought a small deal because I was scared to go bigger. I wasn't even thinking about bigger. I didn't have anybody saying, dude, don't do that. Don't buy one. If one's good, then add 10 or 20 or 30. Because if one works, you can see that 32 would definitely work better if you could swing the deal. I went in half-cocked thinking I'm going to be a real estate tycoon. I'm going to buy a house. I got to be a homeowner. I'm going to rent it to somebody else. I'm going to scam the bank. I was in too much of a hurry to brag about being an owner. I never owned it, by the way, and it cost me. And this is what most of us do in our first deals. You see, I had bought only what I could afford based on the loan I could get. Warning, warning, warning. And the money that I had down, warning, don't do it. And this limited me and will limit you to only what you can afford and not what is a good investment. So what did I do? I went back to the drawing board, laid it out, spent the next 3 years, 36 months learning everything I could about these hitters that I told you about earlier. What had they done? How'd they bought it? How'd they start? Where'd they get their money? Who did they approach? What kind of product were they buying? And that's what I set on my path to do. Just so you know, my entire real estate education has been on the ground walking deals. Without exaggeration, okay, over the last 20 years, I have walked tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of commercial properties, including gone through thousands of interviews with commercial real estate agents, Houston, San Diego, Tucson, Phoenix, Austin, Orlando, Tampa, Miami, Nashville, Savannah, Richmond, and way more, okay? I've shopped markets like Sacramento, Silicon Valley, London when I was there, Malta. Everywhere I go, I am shopping real estate, learning about it. I study as many as 20 operating statements a day where I'm looking at profit and loss statements. And I've interviewed lenders. 3 interviews just today with lenders from the biggest financial institutions in the world, how to get the cheapest debt possible and the tricks used to acquire the best financing in the world. When I'm exhausted doing this, I still walk more properties and look on more researches and pick out the top 50 multifamily owners in the country, call them up, ask them what they're looking at, what they're doing, check their website, see what they're buying, when they bought it. Dude, I wear people out. I've worn out brokers. I've worn out properties. I got people won't even call me back because I've called them so many times. When I first got started, if it wasn't physically walking a property on the weekend, I was working my main job stashing cash, okay? For 30 years, 98% of everything I've done was designed, preparing for, getting ready to do something with real estate. Literally, every time I do a convention, a workshop, a speaking gig, write another book, I know all the money that I end up profiting from that endeavor is going to end up in real estate. Back in the beginning, I was committed to finding that great deal, and I knew I would need cash, okay? This is after the first deal. I said, my next deal is going to be a killer, dude. Now I know what I've done wrong. I've got to go bigger. It's got to have cash flow, okay? It's got to pay down the debt. I knew what I did wrong. It was all about the number of doors. I was committed to finding that great deal, and I would be patient, as much as I hate patience, okay? I am so impatient. And by the way, all of you out there that are impatient, I admire you. Be impatient, but not on your first deal. Be patient as you hunt and impatient when you take a deal down. So once I find that great deal, bam, I'm not patient anymore. I seize it, kill it, take it down. I was committed to finding that great deal. I'm 31 years old at this time, I think, 29, 20, 30, 31, 32 years old. I knew I was going to need the cash. Between 29 and 32, all I did was stack cash, and shop properties. I got good at my job that made me cash, saved the cash, and then loaded up on knowledge so that I would be ready to pull the trigger when I found a deal. I knew I would find a deal if I kept looking. At the age of 31, I knew owning real estate was my financial freedom vehicle. I had no doubt about it. It wasn't my other two businesses. I knew for sure real estate was going to be the one when I was 50 years old that would take care of me. I avoided KIOs, IRAs, mutual funds, individual stocks, and bonds. Every once in a while, I'd tinker in the stock market. Every time I'd get my freaking ass handed to me. I kept my powder dry for when I saw that first deal. But I knew I had to shop property to know that I had confidence so I could put my money in it and not worry about it. And while I did this, I would study financial statements, talk to brokers, talk to banks until they wouldn't call me back. To understand why some deals worked and why some deals didn't work. See, this was my conference. This was my how to invest in real estate program. I was shopping. It was energy and work. I would have much rather paid $10,000 for a program because it would have saved me a ton of time and money. It would be 3 years before my first apartment deal. The first time I'd see a deal, it was like, bam, okay, that's the deal. By the way, I'd seen a bunch of great deals along the way, just didn't have the confidence. But this time I was ready. I had the courage now, I had the confidence, I had the knowledge, and I had the money. After looking at hundreds of properties between Houston, Texas and San Diego, California, and investing thousands of hours, okay, my real estate program's, I think 10 plus hours, I invested thousands, 100 times more hours than that program is. Because I didn't know what to even ask. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know anything, right? So when I walk you through this program, I'm telling you how to find a deal, who to call, what to say, how to get debt, what debt to put on it, what amount of debt, what questions to ask. I'm telling you everything. After looking at hundreds of properties and thousands of hours of studying actual deals, my first real deal, after my first unit deal, remember that single family home? My first deal was 48 units. I knew the second I saw it, I would buy it. I knew the second I bought it, I was going to make a fortune on it. I put the deal under contract the same day I saw it. I was closed in less than 60 days. I think like 47 days I closed it. My first real deal in the bag, man. I'm like, dang, dude, now this is different. I was 90% occupied when I bought it. Okay? I was either 100% or 0% occupied on my other deal. Remember that? I'm already feeling good. I think I was 88 or 90% occupied. Now I got to get in there. I love this property. I owned it for 4 years. Never missed a payment. It never missed paying me. Check this out. Paid me every single month. We dipped sometimes as low as 84% occupied. And I still made the payment, took care of the electrical, took care of the termites, took care of the tenants, took care of the landscape, took care of the debt, made the payments on it, and check this out, I got a check every month. I'm like, this is good. I didn't even believe it the first 4 months. Month 5, I'm like, shit, maybe it's going to last. On month 8, oh my God. On month 12, this is sweet. Oh, by the way, month 12, I went to Cabo on that fishing trip I had to cancel back in Houston. For the next 3 years, I would get a check every month. I never got a phone call about the tenants, the termites, the landscape, the garbage disposal, and I had 48 tenants now. Okay? Now, the reason I didn't get a phone call is because the property produced enough income to pay a manager. Live on the property. One of the 48 units, a guy lived there. I paid him $3,000 or $4,000 a month, plus his rent, so he would take care of the property. 4 years later, I sold that property without ever missing a payment, without me ever not getting a check, and I made $4 million on $350,000 I put in. I put in $350,000, thing cost me $2 million, sold it for $6. I made $4 million. I made more money on my first real estate deal. I made more money on one deal than I had made my entire life combined. Now, the belief that I would create wealth in real estate was now completely validated. I'm like, okay, this is real. I just did this. I could have never done that on one deal. I could have never done that flipping deals. I could have never done that wholesaling deals. I could have never done that buying a house. I knew one day, because of that one deal, that I would become super rich with this vehicle called cash flow producing investment real estate. Commercial real estate is what some people call it, multifamily apartments. Since that first score, I've been buying apartments, repeating and perfecting how I buy deals, how I study markets, how I get a deal financed, how I manage them. And along the way, I've improved my connections in the real estate market nationwide in order to get better access to bigger and better deals. Since that first deal, I've been through the savings and loan debacle, the internet bubble, the housing collapse of 2008. And listen to this. I have never lost money on an apartment deal. I can show you 40 plus deals, never lost money in any environment. The original $350,000 that I had saved to invest, remember that, between 29 and 32 years old? The original $350,000 I invested in those 48 units was the seed capital for what is now 5,000 apartments and $700 million worth of assets under management, and it's growing every day. Now, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to tell you, you saw what I did wrong. You saw the next thing I did, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do this. And you can do this, and you should do this, by the way. Not only can you do it, you should definitely take the time to learn how to do this. The real estate business is not super complicated. This is not a complicated business. One of the reasons I love it so much is it's simple. Find a good location where people want to live. Make sure you take care of the tenant. Okay? Make sure your rent is at or a little below everybody else. Make sure they can't go buy a home easily in a market where homes are more expensive than the rent. If I could just demyth some of the mistakes you'll make or some of the ideas that you have, I'll cover this in more detail under mistakes to avoid. Because if you know what not to do, you're left with where to go. For right now, you aren't going to do this with no money down. Listen to what I'm telling you right now. I don't care what TV commercial you've seen, what guy you've seen on Instagram. You will not play this game with no money down. Now, I consider money to be energy. So, I'm doing this today in my studio. Some people would say, well, you didn't pay anything for the studio. Yeah, I did. Just because it's my studio doesn't mean I didn't pay. This is energy, and energy costs something. You're not going to buy real estate with no money. Somehow, some way, there's money, energy, time, intellect. There's no way to do stuff with no money down. 2, by the way, the less money you put down, the more susceptible you are to losing property. Number 2, B, you can't manage the property yourself, and you shouldn't. C, small properties. Listen to me. Warning, warning, warning. Putin's on the button. Small properties do not work. Small properties don't work. 4, or D, debt is vital, critical, and important to your purchase. You need to use debt. This is not a Dave Ramsey course. And E, be willing to invest for the long term. Okay? E, excellence comes over time. Be willing to invest for the long term. That's why, like at Cardone Capital, you know, a lot of guys that have syndications and funds and they raise money for their real estate, they have a 3 to 5 year horizon to pay back their investors. We don't. We have a 10-year term. With discretion, by the way, I could extend that as long as I want. Why? Because I never want to be selling in a bad market. So when you invest in real estate, remember these 5 things. You aren't going to do this with no money down. You can't manage the property yourself and shouldn't. Small properties do not work. Debt is critical. And E, be willing to invest for the long term. The other thing, you either need to become an expert or find a partner that is an expert. Lastly, I'll just give you a couple bonuses here. You owe it to your legacy and your state to invest in this asset class. In 20 years from right now, today's 2018, 19, whatever it is, 20 years from now, in 2039, you will wish that you did exactly what I told you. Okay? Income producing rental property in great locations. Even if you overpay for them today, they will be worth more money in 20 years. The best days, months, and years of investing in cash flow positive apartments are in front of us, regardless of what you see in the newspaper. Those days, the best days, are in front of us, not behind us.